Hello students, very good afternoon. How you are all? Hope you are doing great and I am your biology mentor Amit Singh. So today I am going to deal with the chapter Plant Kingdom part 2 and in this part we are going to study about bryophytes and pteridophytes, right? So let us start this session. So this is the day 5 and we are going to study plant kingdom part 2. So today's topic that we are going to cover up, that is the general characteristics of bryophytes, right? And classification of bryophytes, that is it constitute Hepaticopsida, Anthoceratopsida and Bryopsida. Economic importance of bryophytes. And so this is all about the bryophytes that we are going to cover up. Next topic will be pteridophytes, right? Classification of pteridophytes and life cycle of pteridophytes. And also we are going to study about the economic importance of pteridophytes. Then we will go to some previous year question. We will solve some previous year question based on bryophytes and pteridophytes. Okay. So for the weightage, if we talk about the weightage for the NEET examination, then 3 to 4 questions come from this chapter, right? So this is very important chapter. So let us start this session. So we are going to study about bryophyte first, the characteristics of bryophytes. So they are found in the moist habitat in which the multicellular diploid sporophyte lives as a parasite. So first of all thing, the plant body is thalloid, right? Thalloid means it doesn't have any true leaves, true stem or true root structure. All these structures are missing, right? So it is again a sort of thalloid structure. But it is quite different from the algae. How it is different? Because it is having some root-like structure. Instead of true roots, it is having root-like structure. Again, instead of true stem, it is having stem-like structure. And instead of true leaves, it is having leaf-like structure. Means true leaves, true stem and true roots are not present, right? And it is having two types of plants in its life cycle. The first one is the gametophyte, and the second one is the sporophyte, right? So the gametophyte is the haploid and the sporophyte is the diploid one. Okay. So we will going to study more about in the coming slide about the bryophytes. So they have no wood to lend them structural supports, no wood like structure. They are very soft plant, right? Very delicate, and they do not have large or showy cones or even flowers. So all these structures are totally missing in the case of bryophytes. So how they look like? Plants, it's very small and seldom attain great length or height. It is very small size of plant and it do not attain to the great height even. So here we can see Funaria and Sphagnum, right? These are the examples of mosses. So bryophytes are the gametophyte dominant. So I've already told you that in their life cycle, two different types of plants appear. The first one is the gametophyte and the second one is the sporophyte, right? In the figure also you can see this part, the leaf, the stem-like structure and these rhizoid, that is root-like structure. This is showing the gametophytic structure, right? And if you see above structure, it is having seta and capsule. That gives you the sporophytic structure, that constitute the sporophytic structure, right? So bryophytes are the gametophyte dominant. This part is the dominant in the life cycle, meaning that more prominent. So that is the more prominent part of the plant. it is longer lived plant, and it is the haploid in nature. So they are haploid, means basic chromosome number, that is N, right? And the sporophyte will be have diploid, that is 2N. So this is the bryophytes, that is the gametophyte dominant plant. The diploid sporophytes appear only occasionally and remain attached to and nutritionally dependent on the gametophyte. So in the previous slide you have seen that the leafy structure at the top of the leafy structure, right? This is the leafy structure, this is the stem-like structure, and here the rhizoids are there, that is showing the root-like structure. And at the top, they are having this capsule, right? And this is the seta, that is stalk-like structure, seta. So the diploid sporophyte appear only occasionally and remain attached to and nutritionally dependent on the gametophyte. So whatever the nutrition it is getting, this capsule part is getting, it is absorbed by this gametophyte part. This is the gametophyte part. So we can say that sporophyte is parasitic to the gametophyte. It is parasitic to the gametophyte, right? So they are totally, this sporophyte is totally dependent on the gametophyte for the nutrition. And it is also written that sporophyte appear occasionally. What does this mean? Occasionally means only after fertilization. The zygote is formed, and the zygote is diploid in nature. So zygote divide and divide, and it form this sporophytic structure, that is capsule and seta, right? So it means sporophyte lives as a parasite on an independent multicellular haploid gametophyte. So again I am telling you, this gametophyte is a haploid in nature, and this sporophyte is diploid in nature. It is diploid in nature. And this sporophyte is parasitic because it is absorbing all the nutrient that is formed by the gametophyte part, that is the vegetative part, right? Bryophytes include the various mosses and liverworts. So generally they are having mosses and liverworts type of plants. We will see in the coming slide what are these two different types of plant, how they look like, right? So bryophytes include mosses and liverworts, so that are found commonly growing in the moist shaded areas in the hills. Where they are found? They are found in moist shaded areas. Wherever the place is moist, they will appear. You can see these plants in the shady regions, basically in the hills. So here you can see the liverworts and the mosses. So liverworts may be thallose or foliose, means leaf-like structure. So here you can see this is the thallose structure. This is the thallus, right? And mosses are always leaf-like. So they are like this, leaf-like structure, right? The plant is like this. The rhizoids are there, and at the above they are having the capsule when the reproduction process take place, and then it forms the sporophyte structure. So here you can see this leaf-like structure, the stalk-like structure, and here it is rhizoid. These are the rhizoids. This is the leaf structure, right? So they are present so compact, that you can see a velvet mass like structure. But individual plant, when you take out with the help of a forceps, you can see such a structure, right? So liverworts, that can be thallose or foliose, and mosses are always leafy. Bryophytes are also called as terrestrial amphibians, as they require an external layer of water on the soil surface. So they are terrestrial amphibians plants. You know that amphibians are the phylum in invertebrates if you study in the animal kingdom, right? So here some plants also show the same characteristics. And what are the characteristics? That the animal that can live both on require land and water for their survival. So in the same way, this particular plant, bryophytes, require land as well as water, right? So that is why it is called as amphibians. Water is very important factor for their survival, right? Because for the reproduction process, they require water. For the reproduction process, they require water. The gamete, the male gamete, swim in the water and reaches to the female. Those, suppose this is the male gamete that is flagellated, and here the this is the female structure that is called as egg, female gamete, egg, and this is the male gamete. Male gamete. So it swim in water and reaches to this egg. So for swimming, it require water, right? So bryophytes are called as the terrestrial amphibians because there is a requirement of external layer of water. The plant body of bryophyte is more differentiated than that of the algae. We have seen in the previous class that in algae, the plant body is thalloid structure, simple thalloid structure. No leaves like structure, no roots like structure, no stem like structure were present. It is somewhat ribbon in shape. It is ribbon in shape, and that is why it is called as thalloid structure. But here in the case of bryophytes, right, it is again thallus like and prostrate or erect. Either it is erect structure or prostrate. Prostrate means you can say that this is the dorsal surface, upper surface, that is called as dorsal surface, and the lower surface that is called as the ventral surface, right? So the thallus is plant body is like a thallus, and they are having either the prostrate or erect form, and they are attached to the substratum by the unicellular or multicellular rhizoid. So from the ventral surface, you can see the rhizoid-like structure emerging out, and it helps to attach the substratum. It absorb even water. So here you can see the female thallus of Markentia and the male thallus of Markentia. Markentia is one of the example of bryophytes. So here you can see rhizoid, hair-like structure coming out from the ventral surface of the thallus. This is called as rhizoids. Okay. So they lack true roots, stem and leaves. We have discussed this. They may possess root-like structure. Why it is called root-like structure? Because it is not a true root. Leaf-like structure. No venation is present there, right? No venation you can see on the moss leaf, and that is why it is called as leaf-like structure. Stem is also not true because no vascular system is present in the stem of bryophyte. So that is why it is called as root-like structure, leaf-like structure and stem-like structure. Got it? So this is very important point to understand. This, that bryophyte do not have true root, stem and leaves. The main plant body of the bryophyte is haploid, that is the gametophyte. Gametophyte, that is the main or the dominant part of the life cycle in the bryophytes. That is haploid in nature, and that is why the main plant body of the bryophyte is haploid. It produces gamete, means gametophyte produces gametes, and hence it is called as gametophyte. The sex organs in the bryophytes are multicellular. So the organs, the sex organs that are present on the bryophytes, they are multicellular in structure. So in the previous slide you have seen that in the case of Markentia, they are having anthridiogoniophore and archigoniophore. Means they are having the multicellular sex organs. The male sex organ is called as antheridium, and they produces biflagellated antherozoids. So this is the male gamete. This is the male gamete, and this male gamete is produced where? It is produced in antheridium. That is the male sex organ. Similarly, the female sex organs are also there, and they are also multicellular in structure, and it is called as archegonium. It is called as archegonium. It is a flower shaped structure. But what about the male sex organ? It is somewhat like this. It is somewhat like this, embedded in the thallus, and it is multicellular. But if you see this archegonium, it is stalk. You can say this is a flower shaped structure like this, right? And here it is egg. It is having egg. So this is the archegonium. This is the archegonium structure, and it is flower shaped, and it produces single egg here. Single egg, right? It is single. The antherozoids are released into water where they come in contact with the archegonium. So when these antherozoids are released in water, they swim in water and reaches to the archegonium. An antherozoid fuses with the egg to produce the zygote. So when they reaches to the archegonium, they enter to that flower shaped structure like this. This is the flower shaped structure. This is the flower shaped structure, and it is having egg like here, the female gamete egg. So this flagellated structure, that is called as antherozoids, antherozoid, swim and reaches to this egg, and here it get fused with the egg, and it form zygote. Later it form zygote. So what is required here? That is very, very important. Without that, no fertilization can occur. That is water, because this flagellated antherozoids required water to swim and reaches to the archegonium, and then only the fertilization takes place, right? So why this external water is required? Dehiscence of the antheridia means when the antheridia dehiscence means it gets open, it releases lots of antheridia, right? Lots of antherozoids from here. It releases antherozoids, right? Dehiscence of antheridia and archegonia allows the swimming of male gametes to archegonia, and that is required because protection from the transpiration, supply of water to all parts through the capillary in the absence of vascular tissue. So they do not have any this vascular tissue, right? So they required water from the outside, and this is the benefit of the water that is present in the outer environment, that it is allowing this antherozoids to swim in that water and reaches to the archegonia, right? So this is very, very important, this presence of external water. Other characteristic, that is zygote. Now the zygote has been formed after the fertilization. Zygote undergo reduction division immediately, and they produce multicellular body that is called as sporophyte. So it produces sporophyte. Now this sporophyte is not free living, but it is attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte and derives nourishment from it. So this gametophyte is providing nourishment to the developing sporophyte, right? Some cells of the sporophyte undergo reduction division, meiosis, right? So when the zygote is there, suppose this is the zygote structure, it divide and redivide from by mitosis, simple division, mitosis, and it form a sporophytic structure, that is capsule, and this is the seta, and the part that is attached to the gametophyte, that is called as foot. So three parts are there of the sporophyte, that is foot, seta, and capsule. Right now, in the capsule region, there are some cells that undergo meiosis, and it produces haploid spores. So what we are seeing here, the whole this sporophyte structure is diploid, 2n, but in some special cells in the capsule that undergo meiosis division, that is called as reduction division, and it forms haploid spores. N. Right? So these spores germinate to produce gametophyte. Again, it produces gametophyte. So bryophytes do not attain a great height. We generally see that they are not attaining a great height. Why? Because they are not having any vascular tissue. So if they attain a great height, then how the water reaches to the upper part of the plant? So that is why they remain in a small size, and they require the water that can be absorbed by the rhizoids, and it can reaches to the smaller height, that is the plant height. So that is why they are not having any vascular tissues, and they are not having any true roots also. That is why their height is quite small. Absence of cuticle on the plant body. No cuticle is present, right? So whatever the water that is present in the plant, that can evaporate. Absence of mechanical tissue. No mechanical tissues. The plants are very soft, very delicate, and that is why, because they are not having any mechanical tissue. Requirement of external sheet of water for the capillary conduction to all parts and transport of male gametes. So that is why they require water. Very important. They require water from the external source, and that occur, a capillary conduction of water is formed, and it reaches to all parts. Okay, and it also helping the transportation of male gametes to the female gamete, right? Transportation of entherozoids to the archegonia, entering to the archegonia, and reproduction process takes place. And if this water is not present, the plant can desiccate, the plant can decay, the plant can die off, and of course no reproduction process will take place. So that is why this external water is very, very important. Okay, so let us talk about the different types of bryophytes. So we are having three different types of bryophytes, right? First one is Hepaticopsida. It is also called as hepaticity or liverworts. Why it is called as liverworts? The word liver is coming here. So if you see the structure of this plant, it is somewhat irregular, like the shape of liver, human liver, right? So it is having somewhat a liver shape. So that is why it is called as Hepaticopsida, right? Antherotopsida. It is also known as Anthocerote or hornworts. So if you see the structure of this sporophytic structure of this plant, it is somewhat horn-like. So it got its name hornworts. Bryopsida, Maasai or mosses. So you can see a lush green, a velvet growth on the rock surfaces if you go to the hilly region. So what are those? Those are actually mosses. Like this you can see the velvet structure. So that is why it is called as mosses. So one by one, we are going to discuss about the characteristic of the hepatic first one, that is hepaticopsida. The thallus is dorsiventral flattened. So dorsiventral flattened means the upper part is up. This is the upper part and this is the ventral part. So this is the dorsal part and this is the ventral. Lower part is called as ventral. So that is why it is called as dorsiventral flattened. Dichotomously branched. If you see the branching, it is like this. The thallus reaches to the apic region and it divides into two parts like this. So it is called as dichotomously branch, right? And it may have leaf-like appendages or without. So they are having a thalloid structure with or without leaf appendages. They are having unicellular rhizoids at the ventral surface. We are having, we can see this unicellular rhizoids coming out. Multicellular scales. If you see the ventral surface, if I draw this, this is the ventral surface. So you can see the rhizoids like this. And same way you can see some scales like structure like this. So I am here showing this. This is the ventral surface. So these are the rhizoids. And here you can see these scales. Now these scales are very important because it provides protection to the growing points. So they occur on moist and shady habitat like marshy grounds, damp soil, water banks and bark of the tree. And these bark of the tree are generally wet. So generally when you go to the hilly region, they are having wet these bark of the trees. So you can see this bryophytes are growing on the bark of the trees, right? So wherever all these habitat, that is the damp soil, water banks, one thing is common, that is the availability of water. Hepaticopsida. So here some of the examples. Here you can see Rixia, Porella and Markentia. So these are some of the examples. Vegetative reproduction in hepaticopsida. So here you can see this is one of the branch of the thallus. So what happened, if the lower part of the thallus, this get decayed, so we can have this two part A and B like this. So this part can grow, and it can form a new thallus, right? So they are having such type of vegetative reproduction in hepaticopsida. A piece that breaks off gametophyte and then lands in a suitable habitat that can grow a new gametophyte. The breakage may be accidental. So such breakage that can be accidental, such as animal trampling or the erosion leading to fragmentation of the existing bryophyte colony. So sometimes the animal are trampling over these gametophyte, right, of the hepaticopsida, and sometimes there is a fragmentation due to the erosion also. So that can lead to the decay part of and leaving some branching part in the soil. So that branch part can later grow on and that can give rise to a new gametophyte. Now this is very, very important. Asexual means of reproduction in hepaticopsida. Many times this question has been asked in the examination. What is this structure? That is called as gamy. So gamy is a cup-like structure, right? And this mature gamy gets separated from the parent plant and dispersed with the help of water. So this a cup-like structure, when it get detached from this thallus, suppose it get detached, and with the help of water it reaches to the other place where the water is available, the soil is there, right? It get attached and it give rise to a new plant. So this gamma cup, actually this is called as gamma cup, and it bears gamy inside. the gamete inside these gamma cup, right? Sexual reproduction in Hepaticopsida. So antheridia are a specialized structure within the male gametophyte where the male gamete, that is sperms, are produced, right? So antheridia, that are the specialized structure, that is also called as the male reproductive structure. Male reproductive structure, right? So they give rise to male gamete, that is called as antherozoids. Markentia is the dioecious with sex organs are born on the stalk and receptacles. Dioecious means they will have a male plant and they will have a female plant separately. So male plant will give rise to antheridogoniophore like this. This is the male plant, you can see. So here you can see a stalk-like structure that bears an umbrella-like structure. This is the antheridogoniophore, and this in the antheridogoniophore, antheridia are present. Antheridia are present, right? So antheridiophore having a stalk and it is having 8 lobed male receptacle, and each receptacle is having antheridia. In the same way, the female thallus is called as archigoniophore. So here you can see the stalk-like structure that is having archigoniophore, and this is also having receptacle, and each receptacle is having archigonia, that is female reproductive structure. Archigonia, right? Now the second class, that is the Antherotopsida, that is also called as Anthocerote or hornworts. The dominant life phase of the hornwort is again haploid gametophyte. So here you can see the horn-like structure. This is the sporophyte structure. This is the sporophyte structure of the Antherotopsida. So sporophyte generation form horn-like projections out of the gametophyte thallus. So again, it is attached to the gametophyte thallus and it give rise a sporophytic structure that is shaped in a horn, and that is why it has got its name hornworts. Unlike liverworts, hornworts have true stomata. Very, very important point. It is having true stomata on their sporophyte as the mosses do. So asexual reproduction take place under the unfavorable condition, right? So this is one of the important point, that they bear stomata, but hornworts do not bear any types of stomata. They reproduce asexually by the vegetative propagation, that is fragmentation of the thallus, also by the tubers. So we have seen in the case of Hepaticopsida how the fragmentation occur, right? In the same way, the Antherotopsida also having the fragmentation process. Sexual reproduction take place in the presence of water, where the sperm travel across the archegonium. So again, they require water, right? Antherozoids require water to swim and reaches to the archegonium, so that sexual reproduction takes place. And after the sexual reproduction, it produces the sporophytic structure. This sporophyte releases spores and forms the gametophyte. So again, this cycle is moving like this. So main plant body is the gametophyte. It gives rise to sporophyte, and this sporophyte again gave rise to gametophyte. But this gametophyte is the dominant phase of the plant, and this sporophyte is not the dominant, but it is quite dependent on the gametophyte, right? Okay, so the third one is the Bryopsida, that is Maasai or mosses. So where they are found on the soil, they are found on the rocks, and also you can see they are growing on the tree barks. Okay, they helps to form soil. So this is one of the importance of this mosses, that they helps to form soil. We will see how they form the soil. They help in formation of soil while studying the economic importance of bryophytes. So they colonize on the rock side. So wherever the rock is there, you can see they are present in the form of colony, in the form of a velvet mass like structure, right? Grow packed together in a dense colony. So this is the colony, this is the colony of moss. And it prevents soil erosion, because when they grow on the soil, it is so compact that they do not allow the top layer of the soil to get eroded by the agencies of erosion like water and wind, right? So they prevent in soil erosion because they hold the soil particle tightly and they do not expose the upper surface of the soil, right? Because they are so compactly present. So this is one of the benefit of this plant. Sex organs in Bryopsida occur in clusters over the tips of the branches. So they are, again, if you have seen in the case of Markentia, that they are present in the receptacles in the group, right? So again here they are also present in group in the Bryopsida also. Sporophyte has three parts: foot, seta and capsule. Peristomal teeth occur toward the apical region of the capsule. So I'm just drawing a rough figure of a capsule here. This is the capsule region, and at the tip, they are having this peristomal teeth. Peristomal teeth, right? And they are having spores. These are the space that having lots of spores. So when this peristomal teeth open, when this dry up, right? So this open and it releases spores outside. So this peristomal teeth occur toward the apical region. So here this is, you can see this is the apical region of the capsule. Apical region, and this capsule is again covered by an operculum. So when it dry up, right, it dehisces, this operculum detached and it exposes this peristomal teeth, right? And from this peristomal teeth, the spores comes out. Sporophyte or the sporangium has a central columella. So they are having a central columella, and so again I'm drawing the capsule. So in this region, this is the spore bearing structure. This is the apical region which is having the peristomal teeth. This is the columella, right? It is having a nutritive tissue which provide the nourishment to the surrounding tissue, right? In mosses, elaters are absent. So elaters are generally the structure that is present in this sporangium, and they helps to disperse the spores. But in the case of mosses, they are absent. So here you can see the life cycle of Bryopsida, that is, they are having this gametophytic structure, they are having this sporophytic structure, right? So gametophytic, it is haploid, and the sporophytic, that is diploid. Foot, seta, and this is the capsule. This is the capsule, three parts of the sporophyte. And you can see this spores. These, after the meiosis process, the haploid spores are there, it get released and it germinate and give rise a protonema like structure, right? It is a green photosynthetic tissue, protonema, that give rise to a new gametophytic plant. Now gametophytic plant can be a female and that can be male. So here you can see the antheridium and here you can see the archegonium. So the female will bear the female reproductive organ archegonium, and the male will bear, male plant, that will bear antheridium. Now antheridium give rise to the sperm, that is antherozoids, and archegonium will bear egg. Now when the fertilization process takes place, okay, the zygote formation will be there, and this zygote will give rise to again this sporophytic structure. Now this sporophytic structure is attached to the gametophyte, and that is why it is called as sporophyte is parasitic to the gametophyte, right? So this is the life cycle of Bryopsida. Now comes the economic importance of bryophytes. So prevention of soil erosion. They form a dense mats over the soil and prevent the erosion by running water. So they form a mat-like structure. They are so compact, the plants are so compact that they form a dense mat-like structure, and they do not allow the upper surface of the soil get eroded by the running water, right? So they are preventing the soil erosion. They are also helping in the soil formation. They take parts in binding the soil in the rock crevices formed by the lichens. So they take part in binding. So they bind the soil and they again become the part of the soil when they desiccate, they dies. Water retention, sphagnum that can retain 18 to 26 times more water than its weight. So they are helping the water retention also. Bryophytes are also used as food. Mosses are good source of animal food in the rocky and snowing clad areas. Medicinal use. Polytrichum communae. This is used to remove kidney and gallbladder stones. So they are used as a medicine also for the removal of kidney stones. Formation of peat. Now peat is a dried and cut as a cake for the used as a fuel, right? So peat is a type of moss. When they dried up, they are get compacted and they are cut in a form of cake, and that can be used as a fuel. Peats are also used as a manure. It overcomes the soil alkalinity and increases its water retention capacity because they can absorb lots and lots of water. So it is having a great capacity to retention of water. On distillation and fermentation, they may yield different types of chemicals also. Bryophytes are of great ecological importance. Why? Because they are the pioneer on the land plant, because you have seen that they are present on the rock surface, bare rock surface. So they are the pioneer that grow on the land plants. Bryophytes are the pioneer on the land plant because they are the first plant to grow and colonize on the bare rock and lands. Bryophytes also prevents the soil erosion that we have already seen. So they grow densely and hence act as a soil binders. Life cycle characterized by alternating and generation of the gametophytes and the sporophyte. This life cycle we have already seen how the gametophyte and sporophyte are coming as a alternation of generation, right? So the dominant and the most recognizable stage of the bryophyte is the gametophyte. Gametophyte is the sexual stage and it produces both male and female gametophyte. The male gametophyte produces sperm cell within the structure that is called as antheridia, and the female gametophyte that produces egg cell that is called as archegonia. This we have seen in the life cycle of the bryophytes. Now comes the pteridophytes. Pteridophytes are the seedless, vascular or the cryptogamic plants. So these are the cryptogamic plants because they are not having any seeds formation, but they are vascular plant. First time the vascular plants came in the nature, that is the pteridophytes. Sporophytic plant body, inconspicuous gametophyte containing small sessile and antheridia and partially embedded archegonia with 4 rows of neck. So this is the very important point. Sporophytic plant body, the main plant body becomes the sporophyte in the case of pteridophytes, whereas in the case of bryophyte, it was the gametophyte, the main plant body, right? Vascular tissue developed for the first time in the pteridophytes, so they attain a greater height than the bryophytes. Roots. Adventitious roots arise from the rhizome and the stem and help in absorption and water and minerals. The stem is in the form of rhizome. The stem is a rhizome, that is underground stem. Leaves are pinnately compound and are known as fronds. So here the leaves are pinnately compound like this. It is a compound leaf, right? Leaves are green and feathery in appearance and can photosynthesis. So they are green in color because they are having chlorophyll, and they are feathery appearance. They are having hair-like structure on the surface, that is called as ramenta, and they perform the process of photosynthesis. Young leaves exhibit circinate vernation. So when the leaves are young, they are folded like this. So this is the showing the circinate vernation. Leaves may be small, as in the case of Selaginella. So small in the case of Selaginella. And when the leaves are small, they are called as microphylls. And sometimes they are having larger leaves, so that are called as macrophylls. So two types of leaves are there, microphylls and macrophylls. Circinate venation, types of leaf or fawn arrangement that is commonly found in the pteridophyte. This is the one of the peculiar characteristic of the pteridophytes that is seen in the case of fern, right? So here you can see this circinate venation. Young leaves or the fronds of a fern uncurl, form a tightly coiled position as they develop. So here you can see this, and later when they become old, they open. Ramenta, they are the specialized hair-like structure. So here you can see the hair-like structure that are present all over the surface. Okay, so these structures, hair-like structures, are present on the fronds and underside of the leaves also, right? So they serves as the various function, including the protection, reproduction and water conservation. So these hair-like structure do not allow the water to get evaporated from the leaf surface. So they are conserving the water. Sporophylls. Sporophylls are the leaf-like structure that bears the spores. Okay, actually they are bearing the sori, and in this sori they are having spores. They are having spores. So sporangia are formed on the ventral surface of the sporophyll. So if this is the sporophyll, this is the dorsal surface, and here the ventral surface. On the ventral surface, the sporangia are present. So here you can see one structure of the sporangia. Sporangia are typically located on the underside of the specialized leaf that is called as sporophylls. So leaf-like structure that bears sporangia are called as sporophylls. Now in the sporophylls you can see number of spores are present, and when these spores this sporangia dehisces, all these spores are released in the atmosphere. They germinate and they give rise to new thallus, right? So inside the sporangium, specialized cells undergo meiosis to produce haploid spores. So in the sporangium, meiosis division takes place. Meiosis division means reduction division takes place, and that give rise to haploid spores. Now, spores in majority of the pteridophytes are similar, that is called as homosporous, means they are just having one single types of spores, that is called as homosporous. For example, Pteris and Adiantum. These are the two examples, right? Pteris and Adiantum. Spores in some pteridophytes are two types, microspores and macrospores. Small size spores, they are called as microspores, and large spores, they are called as macrospores, right? Microspores give rise to the male gametophyte, and megaspore give rise to the female gametophyte. So the plant that bear two types of spores, right, they are called as heterospores. They are called as heterospores. Selaginella, Salvinia and Marsilia are the examples of the pteridophytes that are having two types of spores, that is microspores and megaspores. In some cases, the sporophylls form a compact structure that is called as strobili or cones. So they are so compact that they form a cone-like structure, means sporophylls join together and form a very compact structure that is called as strobili or cones, and that you can see in the case of Selaginella and equisetum. Equisetum is also called as horsetail, right? Selaginella shows traits which resemble the characteristic of the formation of seed. Very important point. Seed habit. And this first time we see in the case of pteridophytes. The megaspore and microspore germinate and give rise to the female and male gametophyte, right? So megaspore that give rise to a female gametophyte and microspore that give rise to male. The female gametophyte in these plants are retained in the parent sporophyte for variable periods. So like this is the female, that is a female plant, and it is bearing the megaspore. Now when this fertilization takes place, megaspore that converted into a zygote. And it is present where? It is present inside the female plant body, that is parent sporophyte only. The development of the zygote into young embryo take place within the female gametophyte. So this also occur when the seed formation takes place, right? So this event is the precursor to the seed habit, considered as an important step in evolution. So sometime it is asked in the examination. So seed habit is a characteristic of which type of plant? Pteridophyte, gymnosperm, bryophytes, algae. So this is the characteristic of the pteridophyte. First time seed habit was seen in the pteridophytes. Now comes the difference between the homosporous and heterosporous. Homosporous and heterosporous because two different types of spores are there, microspores and megaspores. All the sporangia are similar, and here the two types of sporangia, that is the macro and microsporangia, right? Spores are only one type because one type of sporangia, so only one type of spores they give rise. And here the two types of sporangia, macrosporangia and microsporangia, so they will give rise megaspore and microspore. Gametophyte is one type, and here the gametophyte is of two types, that is male and female. It has no evolutionary significance, and here the evolutionary significance is as a heterospory. So here you can see when this megaspore or microspore germinate, they give rise to a thallus-like structure. This is called as prothallus, and prothallus develops from a haploid spore that is released by the mature sporophyte. So here you can see the antheridia, and here you can see the archegonia. Antheridia release the enterozoids which swim in water and reaches to the archegonia, and fertilization takes place. The lower surface of the prothallus bear the rhizoids, which we have seen. The prothalli produce the specialized structure that is called as gametangia, that contains the gamete needed for the reproduction. So we are having two different types of gametangia. Antheridia, that are the male gametangia that produce and release sperm cells, right? We have seen in the figure also of the prothalli. And archegonia, there is a female gametangia that contain egg cells. The upper surface of the prothallus that contains cells capable of the photosynthesis. So this prothallus can also do the process of photosynthesis. Now comes the difference between the bryophytes and pteridophytes. So male plant body, what is the main plant body in the bryophytes? Gametophyte. And here the sporophyte is the main plant body. This is the main difference between the bryophytes and pteridophytes. Vascular tissue is totally absent. First time vascular tissue occur in the pteridophyte. So vascular tissue is present. Plant body is thallus type. Plant body is differentiated into stem, roots and leaves like structure. Instead of root, rhizoids are present, and roots are present here in the case of pteridophytes. Haploid or gametophyte phase is longer lived, and here diploid or sporophytic phase is longer lived. This is linked to this first point, right? Antheridium is stalked and antheridium is sessile. No stalk-like structure is there. So here comes the classification of pteridophytes. We can see Psilopsida, that is a plant this is some of the having a class that is having fossil like plant, right? Xylotum example, you can see here, no leaf like structure is there, and stem is green, that is photosynthetic. Lycopsida, commonly called as the club moss or the spike moss. Selaginella and Lycopodium are the example. Third type is the Sphenopsida. They are called as tree ferns. So they are like tree ferns and they are having equisetum. The example is equisetum. This class is having equisetum. Phelicopsida, they possesses fan-like leaves. An example, Marsilia. This is the aquatic plant, Marsilia. Life cycle of pteridophytes, the main phase of this life cycle is the sporophytic phase. So again they are having the sporophyte phase and the gametophyte phase. What is the main phase? Sporophyte, that is the dominant phase in the life cycle. The sporophyte is the familiar leaf or the frond bearing plant that we commonly recognize as the ferns. Within the sporangia, spore mother cell undergo meiosis and produces haploid spores. We have already studied this, that they are having the sporangia that bear on the ventral surface of the leaves and that give rise to spores, right? Now, when the prothallus formation takes place, that give rise the gametophytic phase. So, prothallus is a small heart-shaped gametophyte structure that develops from the germinated spores. Gametangia formation. On the prothallus only, the two gametangia are forms, that is antheridia and archegonia, right? So they are called as gametangia develop. The antheridia produces sperm cells and archegonia that produces the egg cells. Fertilization occur with the help of water. The entherozoid swims and reaches to the archegonia and they fertilize egg there, right? So fertilization occur when the sperm cell fuses with the egg cell within the archegonium and forming the diploid zygote. Now, the new sporophyte plant, after the fertilization, what will happen? The zygote that give rise to a new sporophyte plant, right? And forms the prothallus. Initially as a small delicate structure known as embryo. Okay, so this is all about, we have discussed about the bryophytes and pteridophytes. So let us have one question. The first question. Archegonia are found in Bryophyta, Pteridophyta and Gymnosperms. So what is the question first of all? Which one is the wrong statement? Okay, so first statement, Archegonia are found in the Bryophyta, Pteridophyta and Gymnosperm. Mucor has biflagellated zoospores. Haploid endosperm is the typical feature of the Gymnosperm. Brown algae have chlorophyll A and C and fucoxanthin. So we have already studied about the algae, right? So brown algae, we have already studied yesterday that it bear so it is having, brown algae is having chlorophyll A and C, right? Chlorophyll A and C. Okay, and they are also having one brown pigment that is called as fucoxanthin. So this is the correct statement, right? Haploid endosperm is a typical feature of the gymnosperm, right? So this is also one of the important characteristic that we are going to study when we will study the gymnosperm, but this is the true statement. Archegonia are found in the Bryophyta, Pteridophyta and Gymnosperm. So again, this is the true statement. Just now we have discussed this. And mucor do not have any biflagellated zoospores. Instead, they just give rise the spores. They give rise the spores. They do not having any flagella. So this is the incorrect statement. In bryophytes, pteridophytes transport of male gametes required. So what is required for the transportation of male gamete? Insects, bird, water and wind. So what is required? Water. The correct is water, because entherozoids swim in water and reaches to the archegonium and fertilization process takes place. Next question. Compared with the gametophytes of the bryophytes, the gametophyte of the vascular plants tends to be larger but to have a smaller sex organ, larger and to have a large sex organ, smaller and to have a smaller sex organ, smaller but to have a larger sex organ. So, smaller and to have a smaller sex organs. Why? The compared to the gametophyte of the bryophytes of the vascular plants, they bryophytes are quite smaller and they are also having smaller sex organ. This is the difference between from the vascular plants. Vascular plants are larger, so all these you can see they are larger. So all these statements are correct. The gametophyte is not an independent free living generation in which of the plant? Adiantum, Markensia, Pinus and Polytrichum. The gametophyte is not independent free living generation. So which is the correct? Pinus. So Adiantum, Markensia and Polytrichum, all these are the different types of mosses, right? So these are the having the gametophyte as independent, but this Pinus is not a independent free living. This is the sporophytic. Last question. Leaves of the ferns are covered with ramenta, spores, wax and indusium. So indusium we have seen in the case of sporangium. Wax is not found and spores are not present there as a covering. Spores are present in the sporangia. So what is present? Leaves, on the leaves, that is ramenta. So ramenta is the hair-like structure that is present. So I am giving you some of the questions that you can note down and later we can discuss about it. So you can note down this question. In a moss, the sporophyte is partially parasitic on the gametophyte, produces gametes that give rise to the gametophyte, arise from a spore produced from the gametophyte, manufactures food for itself as well as for the gametophyte. So you can note down this question. Okay, so I'm giving you the next question. In which of the following group would you place a plant that produces spores, lacks seeds and has vascular tissue, right? So which of the group of the plant that is having these characteristic, that produces spores, that lacks seeds and that also has a vascular tissue? So what are the options? Bryophytes, algae, pteridophytes and gymnosperms. So I hope you have noted down this question. So I'm moving to the next question. In pteridophytes, the dominant generation is gametophytic, haploid, diploid, triploid. It seems that these questions are easy, but you have to pay attention what the question is asking, right? So in pteridophytes, the dominant generation is gametophytic, haploid, diploid and triploid. Okay, moving to the next question. Reduction division in the pteridophytes occur. Where does the reduction division in pteridophytes occur? In prothalysis formed, gametes are formed, spores are formed, sex organs are formed. Next question. Pteridophytes and bryophytes differ in having spermatozoids, archegonia, separate gametophytes, conducting system. So these are some of the questions that you can practice and we can discuss later. You can give the answers. Okay. So this is all about the plant kingdom for the bryophytes and pteridophytes. Gymnosperm and angiosperm we will going to discuss tomorrow. Okay. So thank you so much. Take care.